Your half.
Yes, my half. I helped rescue the princess. I did half the work. I get half the booty.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, broadcasting live from the Studio Simon Stumper headquarters here in Louisville, Kentucky.
Dan Simon of Studio Simon, designer extraordinaire. Good morning. Hello. How are you?
I am fantastic, Paul. What is going on in Fort Collins, Colorado today?
Well, I'll tell you, not a lot of diving for treasure going on here in Fort Collins. We don't have a lot of scuba diving. We don't have a lot of snorkeling necessarily. It's one of my great sadnesses about not being on the coast because I love snorkeling. I love scuba diving.
You know, what's interesting. We're pretty landlocked as well here in Louisville, but for all the time I've lived here, we've lived here for 23 years now. Right on the 264 freeway, there's a dive shop. You can see the building from the freeway. It's like, why is there a dive shop in Louisville, Kentucky? I'm not even sure we even have a lake here.
What about the river? Isn't there a river?
Yeah, but do people dive in rivers?
I don't know. Here in Colorado, we stand in the rivers up to our shins. It's our mountains, obviously. We've got the mountains. You know, the Midwest has the giant rivers. And then, of course, the coasts. The ocean, Dan, I just love it. I love it so much. So this is a fun one for me. It involves an underwater person. We don't do a lot of episodes of Baseball by Design just on alternate identities. And so this is the Morehead City Marlins in Morehead, North Carolina, a collegiate summer level team. But we're going to be focusing primarily on their Crystal Coast booty divers.
You know what? You just said that you don't feature alternate identities as the main focus of episodes of the Baseball by Design podcast. But even though they're not worn as frequently as the principal identity, I think they're worthy subjects for episodes because there's certainly a lot of them out there, some of them better than others, and there will be no end to it. I remember asking you once if this podcast is sustainable because ultimately you could potentially run out of teams. Now, once you add independent teams and add collegiate summer league teams, obviously you've got more to choose from, but you've already been doing this 3+ years. And I don't know how many years it would take to completely exhaust what's out there. But at some point, let's just say you're doing this podcast for 20 years.
Right.
You might exhaust them, but with alternate identities, that they're not only does that make for more subjects, but they're going to keep coming.
There is a finite number of baseball teams. There seems to be an infinite number of alternate identities. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get into that. Dan, of course, you're going to be back with a Studio Simon Stumper later. We're going to talk with a lot of B's coming up here. We got Buddy Bengal, who is with the Morehead City Marlins. He'll chat with us about the Marlins and this Booty Divers alternate. And then Brian Begley, who is the artist who came up with this brand. And then Matt Frick of the St. Augustine Pirate Museum. So we're going to talk pirates with a curator of a museum. And then, like I said, Dan, you'll be back. So, Dan, we'll catch you on the other side of the interviews here for a Studio Simon Stumper.
Okay, and when I get back, we'll dive right in.
Nicely done. Welcome to the podcast, Buddy Bengal, who is the owner of the Morehead City Marlins in Morehead City, North Carolina. Buddy, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Paul. Happy to be here. I love what you guys do. I'm excited. It's an honor to be with you guys today.
You all released an alternate identity that made something of a splash, pun intended. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But before we do, the Morehead City Marlins, your primary identity, it's a collegiate summer level team in the Coastal Plain League. Why is a team in Morehead City called the Marlins?
So, when we first started this team back in 2010, Morehead City is home to, I believe it's either the first or second largest Blue Marlin tournament in the world. Prizes reach $4 to $5 million per year. A lot of celebrities come down. Michael Jordan fishes in it and comes here every single year. And this whole area is really built around Marlins. The Big Rock tournament actually donated some money when we were first getting the team started to the facility. And we thought it'd be a nice little homage to them when we were first getting going. Now, this was, mind you, before a lot of teams started coming out with really crazy and wacky names to do things. And we thought it just kind of fit in the area, which is why we originally went with it.
This team was founded in 2010, which obviously is after the Miami Marlins, then the Florida Marlins back in 1993. Does that ever come up, the fact that there's a major league team that's also called the Marlins?
It does. And we've been obviously very cognizant of different things that they have done in the past, as well as different things that we do. But to me, one of the things that I love about the Coastal Plain League is we are a league of innovation. If you want to be an innovative type team, when you look back at the history of this league, the Savannah Bananas were created in this league. I'll still never forget the day Jesse walked into an owners meeting and said, "Hey guys, I got this idea for banana ball," and started laying out what it would be. You look at the newest trend that's taking the country by storm in cosmic baseball, and one of my close friends, Chris Martin, has really changed really the way you look at baseball by playing it under a black light, and it's just been incredible. You think obviously the alter egos we've pulled out here in Morehead City, but between the ownership group of the league, the ownership group of the franchises in this league, the Coastal Plain League is not just one of the fastest growing, but it's a league of innovation that's really taking the nation by storm.
My buddy Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles podcast went to a cosmic baseball game, and he was raving about it. He just thought it was the coolest thing. I have not had the opportunity to get there. I'm way out here in Colorado, so getting to the Coastal Plain League for me to see a cosmic baseball is not on the list yet, but I definitely want to. That sounds super cool.
Well, the good news is they're doing a stadium tour. I believe the closest they may come to you is Sugar Land, Texas for right now.
Well, speaking of innovation, the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast is because you have this alternate identity that, as I said, really got a lot of attention on social media. The Crystal Coast Booty Divers, and there is a thinly veiled attempt to make it relate to Blackbeard the pirate and his lost treasure. Can you tell me what the inspiration was for the Booty Divers? And we'll get into some of the visuals here in a moment.
Sure. Well, a lot of this really started back in really 2021 when I really started to think to go, okay, Paul, take someone like yourself out in Colorado. If you were looking online to buy a Marlins hat, more than likely you're buying a Miami Marlins and a Morehead City Marlins. We're not drawing attention to ourselves to be able to make this almost a national brand and be able to sell merchandise. And that's when I started thinking, going, how do I create and tell the storylines of this local area on a national scene, and doing it through alternate identities? It's been a growing trend in minor league baseball throughout the years. And I thought, man, how do we create something really funny? And the first one in 2021 was the Morehead City Fish Tacos, paying homage to obviously our local seafood, to our culinary scene here. And quite frankly, everybody loves Taco Tuesdays. So
Sure.
Every Tuesday at the ballpark, we play as the Fish Tacos. It really started to take shape in 2023 when, as I mentioned, the Big Rock tournament is down here. And if you are in that fishing tournament, you generally have a very large motorboat. And we unveiled the Morehead City Motorboaters. So during Big Rock Week, we play as the Motorboaters. And that really kind of gave me the baseline to start to look at how we tell the story. And to me, one of the unique things, and part of the reason why we talk about Blackbeard here, and most people really don't know this, but Blackbeard's ship is actually buried 3 miles off the coast of Morehead City. And it's the Queen Anne's Revenge is buried right here in Carteret County. And there's a lot of pirate lore. East Carolina University, the Pirates, is about an hour and 45 minutes from us. They do a big pirate invasion weekend here. But because there are so many both shipwrecks and pirate lore here, you see a lot of people go diving. And kind of funny, I was literally at the gym working out. I was swimming one day and I was going, man, I want to do something funny with diving because I got to find something really, really funny. And it kind of hit me. And I said, you know what? Wait a minute. We have pirates here in Carteret County. And another team had thought about using the name Booty and decided not to do it. And I said, wait a minute. Pirates dive for booty. Oh my God. We just should name this the Booty Divers. They're diving for pirate treasure here. And that was honestly, I literally had it in the gym while I was working out going, this might actually be really funny. And once I started to think about it and started to develop what I thought was the idea, the brand, and the storyline, it kind of started to take shape and really started to become funny. I demoed it out with a lot of people, and I got the same reaction from everyone. That is absolutely hilarious.
So just to be clear, you thought of the booty divers while in the gym surrounded by a bunch of fit people working out. Just want
Uh,
to want to
to
establish
be
that
clear,
as
I was actually in a pool swimming by
okay.
myself, so I was technically underwater when I was doing it. So it kind of lends itself really well to it.
The logo itself features a person in sort of old-timey pirate gear with snorkel goggles on. The lettering is this shimmery gold, very much, treasure diving. There's a map, there's like a treasure map in the background. All of it lending itself to just the sort of, as we said, thinly veiled disguise of like, oh, it could all just be about diving for treasure. Except there are very explicitly two baseballs, the double O of booty, that the diver is grabbing that looks like another interpretation of the word booty. We've seen this sort of thing go awry. We've seen a team just recently in Sacramento, the River Cats had their gold diggers, where they tried a similar thing where the visual was all about the gold rush, but then they put a promotion out where they made that literal leap. They made the literal leap to we're going to portray women as only interested in men's wealth, and that subverted it. How do you, with several of these in a row where you have made references to, maybe slightly off color references, and you've gotten away with it every single time, like you haven't crossed that line. How do you know where that line is?
Well, for me, I think one of the biggest things when you're coming up with the design and really how you're doing this is one, you have to understand how to push the bar and push the button. To me, where someone's mind goes, I can't control. I can control where my mind goes. I can control what I put out. And to me, we wanted to make sure that we kept this in a way that was comical, that stuck to baseball, that's kind of symbolizing a treasure that would be underneath the water. And where someone's mind may choose to go, I can't really control that. But I will tell you from the beginning, I give more than a lot of credit to Brian Begley. Man, this is the first time him and I have worked together, and gosh, I don't think I want to work with another designer after this. Brian was beyond fantastic in terms of taking an idea that I had and being able to bring it to life. And he did it in what I thought was a very reasonable amount of time. And he was really able to understand when I gave feedback on things, what I was looking for, and to be able to artistically nail it on almost every single level. But to me, it was really just about making sure that with the logo, that it was something that stood out. It was something that was different, something that you want to wear and go, yeah, it's pretty funny. I'll wear that.
You unveiled this with a t-shirt that was maybe even a little more direct. The t-shirt, the slogan says, I go down, which obviously, has multiple interpretations. The response I saw on social media was all pretty even keeled, right? Like people seemed to get the joke. They thought that it was funny. I didn't see anyone saying, that's, you guys have gone too far. What was the reaction for you as the team?
Look, I think there's always going to be backlash. I don't think you're going to ever be able to please 100% of people. I can't control anyone, but I'd say myself on things. And I wanted to put out something that drew attention, that sparked conversation. And as with everything, in today's world, if you love it, you want to buy it, great, man. We welcome you. We appreciate the business. If you don't, that's okay too. There's certainly other things for you as well.
The impetus for this, the inspiration obviously is, as you mentioned, it's Blackbeard's treasure that is buried, you say, 3 miles off the coast of North Carolina. How important is that lore to the people of Morehead City?
I would say not just necessarily to Morehead City. And part of the reason why I use the word Crystal Coast and not Morehead City in this was because we wanted to talk about the entire area. Because Blackbeard ship, yes, it's off the coast, but it's technically off the coast of Beaufort, North Carolina, which is literally about a mile from the stadium. And there is a very big pirate lore in Carteret County. As I mentioned, they do a pirates themed weekend here. There's a lot of different stores that pay tribute to the quote unquote pirate lore and to Blackbeard all throughout. There is a maritime museum here. Most recently, I think a number of years ago, they just went back down to the Queen Anne's Revenge to try to bring things up from that ship. So you do hear people talk quite a bit about that. And naturally, a lot of times when people talk about pirates in this area, we are a very large area for East Carolina alumni. So that's usually the first place it goes.
Are all of these the series of alternates that you were describing, are they all available on the team store? Are they all, do you play in all of them still?
We do. We still play in all of them. So as I mentioned, every Tuesday game, both home and the road, we play as the Fish Tacos. Big Rock Week, which starts with the women's tournament, actually will start this coming Friday and will run until I believe the Saturday before Father's Day. So it's roughly about 10 days. So we'll play all those games as the Motorboaters, and then we'll do this the weekend of June 20th. Our fans have really gotten into it. They've really gotten excited. So it's great. It's really helped us increase our merchandise sales. And most importantly, it's gotten people on a national scale talking about Morehead City, North Carolina.
The Motorboaters nickname, I remember when that one was in the news because the Bismarck Larks had come up with a similar brand, completely independent, right? Like these brands take a long time to develop, and there clearly was no interaction between those teams. But it was funny that both, but you all and the Bismarck Larks came up with the Motorboaters at the same time. Was there any consternation over that, or was it just sort of funny that it happened around the same time?
I will tell you, it's been one of the funniest and best things to ever happen to us. John Bollinger, their owner, and I have got to become very good friends. In fact, I flew out to Bismarck to go spend 2 days with John last year, and it's ironically funny. You would have thought him and I were business partners that hated each other, and all of a sudden decided to split and said, "Hey, we're going to screw each other."
Right.
But it's incredible to think that two people literally followed almost an identical time frame in building a similar brand that had never met each other, didn't know each other. I say that the best piece that we laugh about now is we both filed trademarks 3 hours apart on the same day.
That is crazy.
For that branding. It's been incredible. John has become a good friend. I can't say enough great things about him, the organization he runs in Bismarck. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think the Booty Divers would have been as successful as they are and have been today if it were not for John and a lot of the things that his team taught me. And quite frankly, a lot of the mistakes that I made when we initially, because we launched the Motorboaters before they did, but I made a lot of mistakes in the way that we launched it. And I learned beyond so many different things going from that, I call it a failed effort, to why I believe the Booty Divers was as successful as it was.
What is it that you did right with the Booty Divers that made it a success, you think?
Oh, I think we were prepared, and we built up to that. When I say built up to that was we had the storyline well written and done. We were reaching out to media a couple of days before the launch to just soft launch it with them to be ready to go for Friday. A lot of our SEO, a lot of our social media stuff was put together both with influencers and other people to give them heads up. Instead of with the Motorboaters, we just put out a video and that was it. We also on that day had a team managing each social media entity by themselves, meaning on that Friday, I was actually working Twitter, somebody was working Facebook, somebody was working Instagram, TikTok, and we were able to interact and respond at a much faster rate that we did not do with the Motorboaters. And I believe that engagement is really what helped take things off.
Well, I will say that I learned about the Booty Divers in advance of the unveil because you reached out to Chris Creamer with sportslogos.net, and he handed it off to me as the minor league baseball correspondent for sportslogos.net. And he said, "Here you go, Paul, write this up." It's like,
and I'll be honest with you, he was one of the more excited ones I was to get a response back because, as I mentioned, I love following y'all's stuff online. I've listened to your podcast in the past and love what you guys continue to do and talking about the branding.
So the team is going to wear these Booty Divers uniforms pretty close to when this episode is going to drop. On June 20th is the first time. Have you spoken with any of the players? And I know you've worked with the players in the past with the Motorboaters and the Fish Tacos, and so the players wear these uniforms, and I imagine that a bunch of college dudes wearing these uniforms would get sort of a kick out of it. But is that Is that part of the equation? What do the players think of this series of uniforms?
I will tell you, our scouting director reached out to me literally a couple hours after it dropped and said he's had a number of players reach out and say, "Hey, did we get a discount on apparel? How do we get some of this gear?" And I think the kids were excited to come here and be part of it. I think they're excited to see a brand that they're going to wear garnering national attention. I mean, the fact that we've been on obviously ESPN radio, ESPN, MLB Network did a conversation on it, and it's still continuing to grow. And we hope it grows. We want to reach out to more influencers to get this brand to continue to grow because, again, it's how you attract players. It's how you start to get more eyes on your organization to talk about really the purpose of what we're doing, which is not just to grow the game, but to help small towns. I built this team in Morehead City because Morehead City is a small area. It's never going to have a minor league baseball team, but the people here have every right and opportunity to see something great every single night and to be entertained.
Well, the plausible deniability that you've left in the way that you've launched this brand, I even laughed because I remember when it came out, I think I saw like a baby's onesie or like a kid's t-shirt that said, Booty Patrol on it and had like a little treasure chest. And so forcing people to make a small leap to get to the sort of double entendre, I think, has been a big part of the success of this, right? Because at no point does a butt show up in any of the branding, right? Like it's you've left that for the viewer to do on their own.
As I said to you earlier, where the mind goes is up to the individual person. But we wanted to do something that drew your attention. Again, I look at Savannah and what other people have done. If you're not pushing the bar, people are not talking about you. And if they're not talking about you, you're not able to sell something. Our job is to sell products, to be able to do what we do on a day in, day out basis with this organization. And, I will tell you, part of the thing with the Booty Divers was, yes, when the whole motorboaters thing came out, and as I said, John and I have become very good friends. But my thing was going, I'm not going out like this. I know I can come up with something funnier and better. And that's always been my personality of going, can I push the bar a little bit further? Can I go a little bit more of going, all right, now that we've come out with this, I've already started going, well, man, how do I top that? Like, what's next?
Well, I was just looking at my rundown here, and this is going to drop either on June 17 or June 24. So if it drops on June 17, get out to the ballpark and see the Booty Divers. Buddy, where can people find the team online and on social media and all that sort of thing?
So all of our handles on social media are at M as in Michael, H as in Henry, C as in Charlie, Marlins. Our webpage is just mhcmarlins.com, or you can go to shop.mhcmarlins.com to get all the official Booty Divers gear. Hopefully, if this drops prior to the game, we do have some in-stadium exclusives that will only be available in stadium on the night of the 20th and the 22nd. And you get to come out, find some really funny merchandise, all sorts of things from t-shirts to hoodies. We've got foam fists that are koozies. We got all sorts of fun things that you can get with the Booty Divers logo on it.
Buddy, as we're talking, I'm rearranging my my rundown here to make sure this drops on the 17th instead of the 24th. So we'll post this before the first game as the Booty Divers. Buddy, thanks so much. This has been a ton of fun, and congratulations on the big success of this alternate brand. And I holding my breath slightly about what to see what you have in the future, but I'm also anxiously awaiting to see what we might get out of Morehead City in the future.
Paul, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate all the effort you guys put in. Thank you so much for drawing attention to small markets and small teams like ours.
It's what we do. It's so much fun. Buddy, thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm so pleased to have on Baseball by Design for the very first time, designer Brian Begley. Brian, good morning. How you doing?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Awesome.
This is such a fun logo to chat about here. The Crystal Coast Booty Divers. You created that for the Morehead City Marlins. Before we started recording, you said something that made me chuckle. You said, I kept wondering how we were getting away with this.
Yep.
Can you delve into that a little bit more? Like, tell me what you're thinking when you say that.
I mean, the first time that we heard about being a booty diver, immediately that's the first thing anyone's going to think of is that. And then you kind of go, I think I can get away with where I think this is going with a pirate and treasure. That's how we're going to do it. So, talking with Buddy over the creative process, that was kind of how that went. And then it was like as soon as he spelled out the word booty and you just saw the two O's, I don't know the last time I ever spelled out the word booty. That was a given. So I mean, treasure, diving, it was all right there in plain sight.
I have to say this, this subtext in the conversation that I just had with Buddy, he never once actually sort of admitted to, yeah, booty equals butt, right? Like it's just
Right.
he said the two O's are gold coins, they're baseball coins, and the
Yep.
booty diving is all about Blackbeard. Obviously, the subtext is a big part of that conversation. For as a designer, where was that line for you of where to lean into? The being real obvious about the subtext and this other direction of like, oh, what are you talking about? We're just talking about pirates.
Well, that is a great question because when we first started everything, given all the concepts and everything, I like to usually during my process, I like to see what doesn't work first. So when he and I first talked, I knew the kind of person we got along really well. I threw him some concepts that were definitely way overboard that, probably like the public probably shouldn't see. But when
Ryan,
he
send
said,
those to me. I promise not to share them.
well, that's kind of how it went. It was kind of like, let me show you, let's start here first so you can say, no, this was too far. So there was about maybe two of those that were there that he and I still bring up to this day and kind of still laugh about it just to look at them. But yeah, knowing that that was where to draw the line, basically, as to not go that far, gave me a clear vision of where to go with it. It was good to see where we could go with it, where we draw the lines and where to kind of take it. I mean, there was some where it was a diver. I forget what the name of the old divers were that wore the big bubble helmets that like sank down to the ground with the
Oh
hose coming
yeah.
out of them.
Like in like the old like science fiction, like 10,
Yes.
20,000 leagues under the sea type. Like I
Yeah.
could
Like
totally
the
picture what you're
weighted.
talking about. Yeah.
So we went that direction first, and it was kind of like it's not really giving the effect of diving. They were
Yeah.
more or less, they looked like they were walking on the bottom of the seafloor. So that really wasn't there. But again, we wanted that effect of diving for
hmm
treasure.
hmm
So
hmm
that's
Well,
what we ended.
it's interesting actually that you say that because one of the things I've noted about this logo is it seems like a pirate character diving for this pirate treasure. So it's not a modern day diver looking for Blackbeard's, hidden treasure. It is definitely looks like a sort of a historic pirate. And I wonder how he's keeping that tri-corner hat on as he's diving there. That's must be strapped in with the goggles or something. But what was that decision going with rather than a modern day like scuba diver or whatever, going with a pirate diving for pirate treasure?
This concept came from a scuba diver. Like he was wearing the black scuba diving gear with the oxygen tanks. So he looked like that all the way, but it just looked like a scuba diver. He didn't give the effect of being a pirate when that was kind of one of the main goals we wanted to get across was a booty diver being a pirate, Blackbeard, the ships, the history, that kind of stuff. So as soon as we did that, I kind of just threw on basically pirate gear on top of the scuba diver. And then as soon as we kind of saw it, the face changed, throw a beard on it. The goggles were the only thing that changed. And I was kind of like, the hat was kind of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it was, do we give him long hair, the bandana, the ear, then you go into the, how will this look embroidered, printed, like all these kind of things. Then you kind of start eliminating things from there. And that just seemed like the best fit was the hat with the goggles, no oxygen tank. So
Well, that actually I think contributes to it feeling sort of historic, right? Like
yeah,
this is a treasure hunter who can hunt for the treasure as long as he can hold his breath and then, has to go back to the surface and then come back down. I have no
yes.
idea. I know that it's 3 miles off the coast, but I have no idea how deep it actually is. Do you know how deep down that sunken treasure is?
There's so many ways I could answer that question right now, but
I'm trying to maintain my family safe rating here, Brian.
I agree. I agree. I
Do you know
don't.
how deep down that treasure is? Okay, delete, delete, delete.
Yep, yep. I don't know the facts on that part, but I do
Okay.
know that when we were sharing basically some of the story of just kind of the treasure, not so much the facts. I don't know the facts, the specifics basically of how deep you would have to go to find the booty.
Sure. Okay, okay. Obviously, I've been on your website. I was checking out some of the work that you've done. How did you get involved in this project, designing this definitely unique baseball logo?
Well, thanks for checking everything out. That's awesome to hear. When I first started, maybe the first time being really professional doing it was 2017 when the Durham Bulls reached out to me. I did a whole Nike uniform for the NBA concept thing that just it went viral. I wanted to do it for myself. So people found me that way because I want to work in sports and design. So that's kind of how I took a gamble on myself and put myself out there, and it took off. Mike from the Bulls reached out to me to do their uniforms back in 2017 and kind of started a relationship with them, and I've just had a continued relationship with them doing different types of, the Bull Sharks, the Tampa Bay Rays anniversary, a bunch of different things for them, and Coastal Plain League. And their designer Wally reached out to me and Buddy and said, "I think you guys would be a good match. This is a new project coming up." I won't say what other names came up, but maybe there is something in the future for these ones too that will have another double meaning. So
Well, given their history with the motorboaters and the fish tacos, I
yep.
think that is fair to say that there's more coming. So in addition to, and I saw that picture, it's a great picture on your website of the Bulls celebrating their championship, presumably in the gear that you created there. But you've done work in football and in the NBA, and so you've been sort of all over the sports landscape here. How is designing for a coastal plain collegiate summer level team sort of different from working in these other higher levels, or even some of the lower levels, because you've done some work at the high school level as well?
Boundaries,
Mm.
basically. I don't know, there's something with minor league baseball that, and I think anyone who is aware of minor league baseball knows that there is a lot of, maybe I should say not a lot of ground rules as far as names and having fun. And I think it's all based around theme and kind of bringing back the fun of sport. I coach my son's 6-year-old little league team, and
Nice.
we called ourselves the S'mores. So I mean,
Nice.
why not have fun with doing this stuff too? Because I feel like that's where we all started from, was loving something, having fun, having memories attached to something, and there is just something a little bit more fun about, I think, minor league baseball.
It's funny that your son's team would be called the S'mores. I mentioned before we started recording, I'm in Colorado Springs right now. I'm in a hotel room in Colorado Springs for a work event. Obviously,
Yep,
you're nodding. The Rocky Mountain vibes play here, and
yep.
so that's I'd love to see your logo next to Toasty the S'more here out in Colorado Springs.
It was definitely inspired by them. There was definitely a couple other things that were brought up as far as maybe what you can get away with for a 6-year-old team, but parents like to have fun with it too, and
Yeah.
we look good.
I have no doubt. Your 6-year-old son is lucky to have a designer for a dad here. One of the things that I haven't seen discussed. Were you involved at all in the merchandise where like the logos were put on? I don't know if they're bikini briefs or if they're like a bathing suit. There's some strategically placed logos on merchandise out there.
Very strategic. We talked about it, and it was again one of those things where I felt like the boundaries, or lack thereof,
Mhm.
when we talked about it, and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna do this and this and this," and I'm going, "Can you really?" And then I mean, talking to other designers and the people that are in the league, they were saying if anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be Buddy,
Mm.
because he will push the envelope and he'll do that. And he's kind of like, if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. And to me, that's so awesome to work with someone like that to where you're kind of going, I'm just going to give you everything, and then we can talk about whatever and see where it go. You could just strike an idea from a couple things. But yeah, those shorts, those briefs, he definitely we talked about those.
I'm waiting for a pair of shorts that has just like one coin on each cheek on the back. I think that would complete the circuit here. In general, I feel like in minor league baseball, you're starting to see more of this boundary pushing, especially in the unaffiliated levels, the unaffiliated professional levels or the
Mm-hmm.
collegiate summer levels. But you even had you've had the Udder Tuggers, were sort of an
Yes.
off-color brand, not explicitly but kind of implicitly. You've had the Danville Dairy Daddies, which was certainly there were undertones of that brand. And you mentioned there are things to come with perhaps the Marlins here. What's your sense as a designer and a professional in this field? Sort of where are we going? Is there more to come? Is it going to get more overt?
I think there's possibility kind of anywhere with that. I think there's when doing research for specifically this this project, you come across a lot of those other brands that are like you said, the udder tuggers and everything. I mean, everyone does want to create a new trend, but I mean there is this trend going, but I mean I can see it going. What would the booty divers look like if they came out in the 20s? Like, what would that
Mm.
uniform look like? Or, and lack of technology, like, how would that come around? So, I mean, I think there's possibilities kind of going any which way, but there's definitely a trend in the, like you said, like the double meanings. I think there's definitely more to come. I think
Yeah,
it's a trendy thing, and they do sell.
yeah.
I think if there's definitely a lot more, and I hope to be part of a lot more of them because who knows what's next.
So one last question for you, Brian. Here, I'm curious from your perspective as a designer, as you're creating this, and I'll sort of circle back to where we started, where you said, "I can't believe we're getting away with this." I wonder if you, as a designer, see these cautionary tales of, say, I mentioned in the segment with Buddy, the Sacramento River Cats had their Gold Diggers alternate, which was going along fine right up until they said the quiet part loud, and that's what led to that being pulled. And then, you had Chesapeake Bay with their oyster catchers that, was ostensibly unintentional, but they had to pull that one, and then they brought it back, and that was a whole sort of story there. As you're creating this, are you going through the possibilities in your head of like, oh God, I'm going to be involved in some controversy where they're going to have to unveil this and then pull it back right away? Or were you pretty confident that this one was going to be okay?
I think that kind of goes back to where, me sending Buddy the first initial concepts of pushing the envelope to see where he would even say that might be too far. So, knowing what these other logos have looked like, that have been pulled or have gotten quote unquote canceled, I'm pretty confident with when we put something out there that there's not going to be any I don't want to say any backlash because I like everyone has an opinion. I want to hear everyone's side of things. It doesn't all have to be good. I don't.
Right,
I like
right.
I like hearing every part of it. We touched on every part of if we do this, who could hear it, and not so much tiptoeing, but kind of how can we have everybody having fun with this and not do anything that would be negative or looked at negative. And then obviously from the production side, you don't want to sit on a ton of merch.
I'm going to flip that same question around. I lied when I said it was my last question. I'm sorry about that. But so you were confident that you weren't crossing any lines that were going to, end up in an apology. The
Yeah.
flip side of that, are you surprised by just how successful it was and, the reach that it ended up having?
Yes and no. Yes, because it's still bonkers to see that it came out how many weeks ago and it's still getting, I feel like it's still gaining traction.
Yeah.
And not surprised because Buddy said it's going to go viral. He said this is going to take off.
Yeah.
And with the first time working together with somebody to say this is what's going to happen, it's not like you're skeptical at first, but when it actually happened, you're kind of going, holy cow, this guy nailed it. This guy nailed it.
That's
So
awesome.
to work with someone who trust in you to make their vision come to life, that's an awesome relationship. That's an awesome feeling.
One of the things the Marlins did that not every team does is they called you out in their article, in their press release. They said this was created by Brian Begley. And
Yeah.
I often have to dig for that information if I can find it at all. So, clearly they appreciated working with you, and I was glad that they made my job easier to find you there, which led to
Yeah.
this, which led to you being on the podcast here. So,
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
yeah,
they as an independent designer, that's anyone that is in this role will appreciate that.
yeah, and I think that, this one of the things that sets this brand apart is just visually, it's not created by one of the firms that you see doing a lot of work in minor league baseball necessarily, and so the aesthetic is
Yeah.
slightly different from many of the brands that you see out there. And those firms all do amazing work, but there's room for more than just those firms in minor league baseball. So I'm glad they found you, and this was certainly a fun brand for sure. Brian, I assume your phone is ringing off the hook with minor league teams reaching out to you now after the success of this. Where can people find you and the work that you do online?
Well, my website is iambrianbegley.com, and all my social media handles are at I am Brian Begley.
I am Brian
So,
Begley. I like it.
yep.
Very good. Brian,
Very
thank you so
simple.
much. This has been fun.
Oh, I appreciate it, Paul. Good luck with everything too.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm so pleased to have on Baseball by Design Matt Frick, who is the curator of the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. Matt, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I am so pleased that you were able to join and talk about what is really a fun and sort of silly alternate minor league baseball brand based on the fact that Blackbeard has some shipwrecks off the coast of North Carolina. I mean, obviously you're in Florida, it's in North Carolina, but I'm sure there's a whole history of pirates in North America. So I think I'm going to start with a sort of 30,000-foot question here, which is how important are pirates to the larger history of North America?
It's very important, actually. The pirates in their operations in the golden age of piracy, particularly from between about 1680 and 1730, they helped fuel the economy of all the colonies around. Their reason being is that the colonies were taxed heavily with all of the goods that were coming to and from the colonies, whether they were in the Caribbean or coming over from Africa to the East Coast of the United States, and the pirates were able to bypass that. So they actually helped to, feed the local economies up and down the East Coast, and were a huge part. And of course, they were lawless to begin with, so every government wanted them, eradicated. But the that's the European governments. The local colonies were more than welcoming to them. They wanted the influx of goods and cash that the pirates provided.
Well, it's actually an interesting question because I said I was starting 30,000 feet. Let's go 50,000 feet. How would you define a pirate?
Well, the term pirate came from a Greek term thousands of years ago. And the way I like to explain it is that the first time somebody in a canoe robbed another person on a canoe, then they were labeled as a pirate. So it's essentially maritime robbery.
Hmm.
And so on any kind of waterway, it doesn't matter if it's a river, bay, ocean. And so that term has been used, like I said, for thousands of years.
So this team in Morehead City, North Carolina, has an alternate identity based on the fact that, like I said, that Blackbeard had some wrecks off the coast of North Carolina and that there was treasure out there. How much undiscovered treasure exists out there for divers to discover someday?
There's a lot of them, and it's not necessarily that they were pirate shipwrecks, because these ships that did go down in the 1715 Spanish Plate Fleet, they're still being dived on right now. 1733 fleet, a little farther south in Florida near the Keys, and then of course a lot of people are familiar with the Atocha that went down in 1622. Most of those got wrecked by hurricanes. If a pirate captured one of the a vessel of with any kind of goods, and it's mostly merchant ships that they would get, they spent that money as soon as they got to land. So the problem of people looking for pirate shipwrecks, there's not many of them out there. And some people think, there's a lot of pirate treasures still on land, but again, pirates spent everything, and that's why they had to go back to sea so they could steal more stuff. That's how they made a living.
So Blackbeard obviously is in the Pirate Hall of Fame. Who is Blackbeard? What is his significance historically?
So Blackbeard was probably the most famous pirate of the golden age of piracy because he wanted to be. He wasn't the richest by any means, nor was he as successful as some of the other pirates above him, I guess, on the list of famous pirates. But he wanted to be feared, and so his persona. Where he had his long black beard that went from essentially his eyelids down. He would braid them, put ribbons in them, and then stick lighted fuses under his tricorn hat, and then use that to make smoke and his face glow as they attacked, and then just cause fear everywhere. And so everybody was afraid of him, and he wanted it to be that way. So he does have a big history though in North Carolina, particularly in the area where the Morehead City Marlins are playing, where they play just up the Pamlico River, which is just north of it, of Morehead City, in the town of Bath. Blackbeard actually retired and got married to one of his probably his 12th or 13th wife. Nobody's actually sure, but it was actually the only documented legal marriage, if you will. And so he tried to retire, but that didn't last long. He went right back to pirating. And so while he was in Bath, he had continued his operations, and he was protected by Governor Charles Eden of North Carolina. And unfortunately for Blackbeard, the governor of North Carolina was hated by Alexander Spotswood, who was the governor of the Virginia colony. So when Alexander Spotswood found out that Blackbeard was operating out of Bath and then the Ocracoke area, he sent several sailors, groups of sailors of Royal Navy sailors that were stationed in Virginia down into North Carolina. Not legal by any stretch of the imagination, but it needed to be done. And so that's what he did. He did a raid on Blackbeard and caught up with him off of Ocracoke, and then was able to capture the ship and then kill Blackbeard on November 22nd, 1718.
That I had no idea that Blackbeard remained in North America. That's a super fascinating story. Speaking of learning things about pirates, you're at the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum. It's a site that I have visited. I got to be there last November. A really fascinating and well done site. Why are we still so fascinated with piracy and pirates and this history?
I think that's a question that comes a lot from different venues where people ask about that. And the best answer that really we've come up with is people are fascinated by pirates because of their freedom. They had
Mm.
they could do what they wanted. They set their own rules. They signed articles of piracy before they went out to sea. So they knew how much money they were going to get, how much workman's compensation you'd get if you lost a finger or an eye. You actually got paid for that.
Oh,
And so they also had a set of rules, and everybody knew if you broke the rules, then the punishments were already laid out. And so everyone signed them, even the captains. But if you were in the Navy or the merchant service, you didn't get a say in anything. And so it was brutal life for those people. So the pirates decided to take matters into their own hands and run their own lives. And I think a lot of people nowadays wish they had the same thing. They wish that they could just go on their own, make their own rules, and then live life freely. One thing some people don't realize though is that when you did decide to become a pirate, you generally only lived about 2 to 5 years. So maybe
oh.
not a great career choice for a long term.
Your job as the curator of a pirate museum, what does that entail? What do you do every day?
I go around and I make sure that everything's working.
Huh?
We have so many interactive things at the museum, whether it's an electronic book of pirates where you can learn about 12 most famous pirates. cannon that are actual cannon, but we modify them so that you can actually fire them. And then there's soundtracks basically in every room with different sound effects as you're going through, as well as even an animatronic Blackbeard talking head. So that's what I do. But I also get a chance to make sure that all of the artifacts, which we have over 800 actual artifacts from the Golden Age of piracy, that I get to make sure that they're all cleaned. And so I get to actually handle all of this stuff and all of the treasure. And that's what really drew me to the job in the first place.
All right, and bringing this back to Morehead City, do you have anything specific to Blackbeard at the museum?
We have a replica of, well, it's not a replica, it's an exact copy. It's of a blunderbuss that was sort of a kind of like a shotgun with buckshot now is how it was used. We have one that was found on the Queen Anne's Revenge that was wrecked south of Ocracoke, and it was debatable whether it was wrecked on purpose or not, but that was Blackbeard's premier ship. And so that happened just before as he was this wreck happened off of North Carolina or on the coast of North Carolina. That's what led him to set up shop in Bath. So he did actually spend the last, few years of it, or last year and a half maybe of his life in North Carolina. That whole area is famous for Blackbeard. There's historical markers and stuff all over the place.
Before I let you go, Matt, I understand you are a baseball fan. What's your team?
My team is the Atlanta Braves. I was
Okay.
or I was born on a naval base in Rhode Island, but grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, near Atlanta. So my favorite team is has been the Braves since I could watch TV, I guess.
Well, you're wearing an Atlanta t-shirt right now, so I guess that was
Yeah,
probably an easy question. Oh, that's a
yeah,
Falcons t-shirt, not a Braves
Falcons.
t-shirt. So, well, Matt, this has been a lot of fun. Where can people find the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum online and on social media?
You can find it online at www.thepiratemuseum. So just all strung together, thepiratemuseum.com.
It's a really terrific site, very interactive, as you said. It's a really immersive experience when you go in there. I enjoyed my time for sure. Matt, thank you so much. This has been fun.
All right, thank you.
All right, Dan. Thanks for hanging out for those interviews. Glad to have you back here. It's time for a Studio Simon Stumper based around the Crystal Coast Booty Divers. I'm a little bit nervous to see what you got for us here. How many human anatomy based minor league baseball logos are there? Perhaps something to do with Pirates. Oh, maybe something to do with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't know. Again, I never prepare for these stumpers, and I'm less prepared than ever for this one.
Well, as far as human anatomy goes, we've got fifth grade Will listening, and so we're going to keep this clean.
We've done a very good job of keeping our safe rating on this on the podcast throughout this episode.
Okay. Now, in your discussions that preceded this Stumper segment, was it brought up that the Outer Banks of North Carolina are called the graveyard of the Atlantic?
No,
Well, did you know that the Outer Banks of North Carolina are called the graveyard of the Atlantic?
I did know that, but only from like 15 seconds ago.
Well, and this is due, understandably, to its treacherous waters and numerous shipwrecks, which
Yeah.
is the reason why there's an alternate identity, the Crystal Coast Booty Divers. So, given that, and with this episode being divers and featuring divers in search of the booty of these shipwrecks, our Studio Simon Stumper today asks, which of these shipwrecks is not one that can be found in or in very close proximity to the Crystal Coast waters of Morehead City, North Carolina?
Okay.
Which one is not? Is it A, one of the pirate Blackbeard's ships,
Okay.
B, a Civil War ironclad, or C, a World War II ship sunk by a German U-boat?
All right. Well, so Blackbeard has been much discussed on this episode, and so I know that Blackbeard is right off the coast there. So that gives me a 50-50 chance between the German U-boat and the ironclad from the
Right,
Civil
but
War.
the German U-boat sunk a World War II ship.
Okay.
If that really happened, I'm not saying it happened, but
Mm,
it's not the German U-boat in this potential correct or incorrect answer.
okay.
It is the World War II ship would have been sunk by a German U-boat.
So an American World War II ship sunk potentially by a German U-boat off the coast of North Carolina, or the Ironclad, a Civil War vessel. There's something in my brain, Dan, picking at the idea that the Ironclad is a real boat that was actually sunk, but not in North Carolina. So I'm going to say that a German U-boat did sink a World War II ship. We know that Blackbeard is out there. And so I'm going to say that the answer is the Ironclad is the answer.
One of the things that we have established on this podcast, Paul,
Yeah.
is stick with your first instincts. Okay. And because it seems like every time you've changed them, you got the wrong answer.
Okay.
So you did the right thing and
Oh,
you
thank
got,
goodness.
and it's correct. Now, your sussing of it out and your recollection is close to being accurate, but I am going to uh, give you the real scoop on this. So first, let's talk about Blackbeard. There were actually two of Blackbeard's ships, the Adventure and the Queen Anne's Revenge, both wrecked in the nearby Beaufort Inlet in 1718.
Okay.
And that's only about 3 or 4 miles from Morehead City. The World War II ship, the United States World War II ship, was indeed sunk by a German U-boat. I didn't know about that until I did the research for this question. That's very unsettling that there was a German U-boat right there to sink
Right.
a boat in our waters right off the
Yeah.
coast of North Carolina. So that was the USS Indra, a freighter that was sunk by a German U-boat in 1942. And that was right near Morehead City. People would
Okay.
say that's the waters of Morehead City.
Okay.
But when you said that the ironclads, you remember that the ironclads, one of them was sunk in waters that were not North Carolina. I think you're conflating the Battle of Hampton Roads, which took place in 1862 between the Monitor and the Merrimack. And I believe that Battle of Hampton Roads was Virginia. So that's why you're thinking of that. However, though the Monitor was heavily damaged in that battle, it did not sink.
Mm.
And it managed to limp away, and as much as one can limp in water, and it was fixed. And later, it did sink during a storm off of Cape Hatteras, which is in North Carolina. However, it's about 90 miles from Morehead City. So that's why I specified that these shipwrecks, we're talking about which one of these was not one that could be found in or in close proximity to the Crystal Coast waters of Morehead City, North Carolina. I don't know that I would say that 90 miles is close proximity. Would you? Does that make it a fair question?
I think it's a fair question, and it was definitely the farthest away. So it's, I think that is, I think it's a fair question. It might have been lingering there in my subconscious. I lived in Virginia for 10 years. We used to go to the Outer Banks all the time to, enjoy the beach. That's where Beach Week was when I was in college. We'd go down to the Outer Banks. And I used to love Nag's Head. Duck, North Carolina, out there on the Outer Banks was sort of our spot. So, hey, Dan, thank you so much. This has been fun and surprisingly G-rated so far as this stumper went. So certainly appreciate your contribution to this episode. As always, we'll see you next week. And thank you as always.
You're welcome as always. See you next week.